In this episode, I am walking you through the 4-step reset, a process that will actually change your relationship with food for good in 2026. I promise you do not want to skip this episode. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. Welcome back to the Live Unrestricted podcast, my friend. Yes, I am releasing a new episode on Christmas Eve. I just wanted to continue to show up during the holiday break for you to give you some strategies, some content that's going to set you up for a completely different year in 2026. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through a 4-step process to make 2026 the year that you finally leave your issues and struggles with food behind. I know that you probably have promised to yourself multiple years, or maybe it's been decades, that this year is the year that things are going to change. There's like that starting over in January, that New Year's resolution energy that comes in. And maybe you have subconsciously lost hope and trust in yourself that you actually can change and that things can be different in your experience around food. And I think the reason why this happens is people don't really know how to go about change. And we end up either we focus on the wrong things, or we get so caught up in repeating the same patterns from our past, hoping that this time is going to be different, without recognizing that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the actual definition of insanity. So this episode is here to gently guide you towards an approach that's going to help you hone in on what's actually going to make a difference this year, what's actually going to help you change and evolve and transform your relationship with food for good. And we're going to be doing this on an identity level, right? We're not going to be talking about like these small little tactics or, we just have to make sure to eat healthier or to move more. That doesn't work. And I'm going to explain why in a second. So I like doing an episode like this during this time of the year because it is a time where we are forced and gently encouraged to slow down. We have time off of work, the days are shorter, things are slower. Sometimes we have a bit less responsibility. There's this like twilight zone between Christmas and New Year's where it's like you have a little bit more free time. And this is a really beautiful time to set an intention for the new year. There really is something to like this fresh start energy. Do I fully get behind the idea of a New Year's resolution? No, because I think that most people don't really think it through or don't include some psychology of behavior change concepts into it. So it ends up just like after 3 weeks, it's out the window. So that's not what this is about. But I am definitely feeling this pull and this excitement about 2026 because I don't know about you, but I think I can speak for a lot of people. 2025 was a rough year, you guys. It was tough. It was really challenging. A lot of people were pushed to shed layers and confronted with challenges that made us confront certain parts of ourselves that just can't come with us. If we really want to step into a new version of us and we want to step into our fullest potential, I think that this year just was really, really challenging, and it was a year of shedding. And that's not even taking into account that I have heard a lot of people went through many personal challenges, relationships, families, jobs. Like this year was just, I think we can all agree we're ready to leave it behind. And with that, this is a beautiful opportunity to be really intentional about what you want to create in the new year, because it's really easy to just get swept up by the current and continue doing the same things over and over again. And that's how you end up sleepwalking through life. So taking this time to slow down and using that little twilight zone between Christmas and New Year's to create this strategy, this plan, and map out a roadmap for you for the new year will be more impactful than you think. So let's get into this 4-step process that you can do in order to, number one, clear the year, clear 2025, and to bring in something new for 2026 and beyond. So I'm going to start with step 1. And before I get into step 1, I want to tell you why this is so important. A couple of days ago, it was a Friday night, and Luke wasn't home, and I had the home to myself. And I was starting to feel like the past couple of weeks have just been so exhausting. Like I had been dragging my feet, and I just have been feeling so depleted. And I was like, why am I so tired? Like I understand in December, like a lot comes up, and I literally did a whole episode on 6 reasons why food feels so hard in December. And those reasons can also apply to just your general sense of energy and motivation and ability to be focused. So I was feeling really run down. And on that Friday night, I was like, this is going to be great. Luke isn't going to be home. I'm going to have a night where I can take a bath and light a candle and just kind of like take it easy. And I'm really connected to my intuition. So on nights like that, I always know that my intuition is going to guide me to whatever is going to be the most nourishing. So maybe I'm going to meditate. Maybe I'm going to journal. Maybe I'm going to feel like watching TV or some documentary. So I took my bath, and then I felt called to start journaling. So I started journaling. And what I started doing was I actually felt pull to do a year review, because I was thinking like, man, I feel so run down, and this year has been really challenging. So what if I were to just start from 12 months ago and write down everything that happened this year, and the good things, the challenging things, the lessons that I learned? So I started writing it down, and I started at December 2024, which was 12 months ago, because I did go through something really challenging in December last year. So I started writing it down, and I went through January and then March and then all of the different things that I experienced this year. There were friendship losses and personal challenges and a lot of pivots in my business and in my career, intentional pivots, but pivots are really difficult and it creates a lot of uncertainty. And there were other personal challenges like my back injury, and then a couple of weeks ago, tonsillitis. And, Luke had, he changed his job. And so there was a lot of beautiful things. But as I started writing it down, I gradually started to feel this weight come off of my shoulders. And I started to feel lighter. And this sense of self-love and compassion started to take over me, because I realized, and I'm getting full body chills right now, I realized like, Sabrina, of course you're tired. And of course you feel depleted right now and you feel like you're dragging your feet because this was a really, really challenging year for you. And I want you to imagine that when you don't do something like this, when you don't take the time to really look back and see the things that you experience and the wins that you had, like that's an important piece of it, is to look at all of the growth that you've experienced because of those challenges. But when you don't do that, you don't give yourself the opportunity to clear it. And it's like every challenge, every big thing that happens in your life is this heavy rock that you put in a backpack and that you carry on your back. And so let's say I had a big thing happen in December. That's a rock that got put on my back. And then something else happened in January, another rock. And then something happened in March. And then something happened there and there and there. By the end of the year, you are carrying this extremely heavy backpack of rocks. And if you're not careful and you're not intentional and you don't do this process, you bring that bag of rocks with you into the new year. And now you just keep adding more and more and more. So doing this process was so therapeutic for me because it also made me realize how strong I became, how many really tough challenges I overcame this year, and the person I became on the other side of it. Because now I can go into the new year knowing that the big goals that I'm setting for myself, which are big, they're ambitious, they are scary as all hell, you guys. But because I look at the year that I just had, I'm like, you can handle it. Failures, you can handle them. Like you are used to failures. You are used to rejection. You are used to going after something and not achieving it. And so whatever happens in the next year, you can go after it because you can survive it. So that is why step one of this process is to clear your year. Do a year review. I'm telling you, you might not realize how powerful this is going to be until you start doing it. Take some time, 30 minutes, an hour. I think I ended up journaling for like an hour to an hour and a half. Luke came home at one point and I was like, sorry, babe, I'm not done. So I locked myself in my room and just kept on writing. And start wherever feels right for you. Maybe it's like me 12 months ago, so December 2024. Maybe you want to start in January 2025 and really just walk yourself through the entire year. What happened in January? What were some of the challenges? What were some of the wins? Like that's really important, is to also recognize the amazing things that happened. So what are some of the challenges? What are some of the wins that you had this year? And then most importantly, what are the lessons and the growth that you got from the past 12 months? No one is ever stagnant. There's this idea, and I hear this a lot, like I'm stuck, I'm not changing, I keep repeating the same thing. No one is ever stuck or stagnant. There's no such thing. Everything is always in motion. And so no matter how much you feel like you haven't changed that much, because I'm telling you, I was carrying this idea that this year wasn't a growth year for me. Like I didn't change that much. I didn't evolve that much. And then when I started doing this, I realized that there is so much that can happen in a year. And now that I look back on it, I am a different person than I was 12 months ago. So who did you become this year? What did you overcome? I am telling you, if you want 2026 to be different, do not skip this step. Do not skip the year review so that then we can move into step 2. Because another way to look at it too is, let's say that you want to paint this beautiful portrait. If you're an artist, I'm definitely not an artist, but if you want to paint this like beautiful image, but you're starting from a canvas that is not blank. You're trying to paint on top of something else. You're not going to be able to create what you really want to create because you're carrying some pieces of the past image, or you're carrying some pieces of your past. And one of the things I always tell my Food Freedom Academy students, and it always really resonates with them, is that the best place to start is zero. The best place to create from is zero. Not carrying the baggage, not carrying the quote unquote failures, because all that's going to do is it's going to warp your perception of what's possible. And you're going to be carrying these limiting beliefs from your past instead of just carrying the lessons. That is the only thing that I want you to bring with you in 2026 is the lessons, the growth, and who you became as a result of the challenges that you went through. So then, now that you are starting from a blank canvas, we can move on to step number 2. And step number 2 touches on the most important aspect of change, which is changing your identity. One of the things that I see people getting wrong all the time when it comes to change is that they focus right away on, what do I have to do differently? Your behaviors. But trying to change behaviors without addressing your identity is like trying to install a new app on an operating system that doesn't support it. So it might work briefly, but then your system is going to reject it. And so the identity that you hold answers the question, who am I? And everything beneath that exists in service of that answer. Your brain is wired to protect your identity at all costs because your identity equals safety, predictability, belonging, coherence. If something threatens your identity, your nervous system flags it as danger. So your identity becomes the way that we organize our world, that we organize the way we see ourselves, the way we show up in the world. And so it's what you believe is possible will go along with the identity of who you believe you are, what you allow yourself to do, and what feels quote unquote like you or quote unquote not like you. So you might hear this all the time, like, that's just not who I am. And we use that as a reason for why we can't do something. That's just not who I am. And I remember in COVID, I came back from France because I was living in France and the pandemic hit. And then I had to go live back at my parents in their basement. And I had to do 2 weeks of quarantine because this was like literally mid-March, like everything was hitting. And during those 2 weeks of quarantine, I was forced to spend a lot of time with myself doing not much because I was stuck in this like tiny bedroom in my parents' basement. And I was feeling a lot of anger, frustration, irritation, like just a lot of built up negative energy at the time. And I hadn't fully started my personal development journey. That was like where it all started. And I remember I had to sit with my anger and I had to sit with my negativity. And I had this epiphany because I was spending so much time in silence. It's in the silence that you get to hear messages that are meant for you. And I had this epiphany of like, what if you became a positive person? At the time, I was really negative internally. Like I was a completely different person. I was very distanced and I kept everyone at arm's length and I didn't allow myself to be vulnerable. I didn't hug anyone. Like I had a lot going on internally and my relationship with myself was not great. And so I remember I had this thought of like, what if when I leave this room at the end of my quarantine, what if I were to become a positive person? The person who like lifts people up, who is people's biggest cheerleader. What if I became someone who really loved myself? What if I treated my parents differently and my siblings differently? And what if I told my siblings that I love them and I showed people that I love them and I expressed how I felt and I became vulnerable? Like I had all of these thoughts. And then there was my ego that started freaking out, and I started feeling this like intense discomfort because I had the thought of that's just not who I am. That's not who I am. And I noticed that. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. There seems to be a belief that I was born this way. Maybe that's just my personality. Like this is just who I'm always meant to be. And for the first time, I questioned that. Is this really who I am? Am I born to be negative? Am I born to not love fully and keep everyone at arm's length and not be vulnerable and not be connected to myself? Like, is this really like in my DNA? Is this who I'm meant to be? And for the first time ever, I entertained the idea that I could actually change. Not just change my behaviors, not just change these like surface level things about myself, but deeply change on an identity level. And entertaining that idea is what made me realize that, okay, what if I actually could become a positive person? And I left that quarantine on after 2 weeks. And I sat my parents down and I said, because at the time we had like a little bit of a complicated relationship, mostly because I was difficult and me and my dad butt heads a lot. And I sat them down and I said, all right, we're going to be spending a lot of time together because it was the pandemic and I was going to live with them. And I was really worried about us butting head all the time. And I said, we're going to be spending a lot of time together. And I really want this to go well. I want us to get along. I want us to have a great relationship. I want to be a good daughter. And so how can we have a conversation around making this go as well as possible? And I really think I look back at that version of me and I'm so grateful that I had the guts to have that open conversation with them. And for you, it might not seem like a big deal, but like I didn't have those kind of conversations with my parents at the time. And I ended up getting so close to my parents during that time. And I'm so grateful that I got to spend so much time with them. And we had such a beautiful relationship. And I remember at one point, my mom was having a really hard time because she wasn't getting to see her kids as much. And we were hugging and she was crying and I was just holding space for her. And she said, I feel like I got my daughter back. And I think that all of that trickled down from that one belief that maybe I can change who I am. And maybe I can change the person I believe I'm capable of being. So all of this to say that who you believe that you are, if you believe that you are someone who's always going to struggle with her relationship with food, who's always going to struggle with body image, who's always going to struggle with money, who's always going to struggle with friendships or relationships, whatever it might be, if you don't change how you see yourself, then you will have a really hard time changing the reality of your life. And that's why step 2 is you want to ask yourself, the person who has a healthy relationship with food, because obviously this is a podcast where we want to get you to a really healthy place with food. Obviously, you can do this with any other aspect in your life, but the person who has a healthy relationship with food, what emotions does she feel around food and eating? That's the question that you want to ask yourself. The person who has a healthy relationship with food. So let's say the version of you 12 months from now who has a healthy relationship with food. How does she feel around food and eating? And really write that down. What emotions does she feel? And you might write things down like she feels calm and at ease. She feels safe and trusting in her body. Maybe she feels neutral to positive, right? Food has no emotional charge. I'm telling you all of the things that I feel around food. I feel present while eating. I feel confident in my choices, flexible, adaptable, grounded, not obsessive. And you'll notice that the person who has a healthy relationship with food also has healthy emotions around it. Like it goes hand in hand. And that might seem obvious, but it's a really important distinction to make. So write down as many as you can. The person who has a healthy relationship with food, what emotions does she feel around eating? Write down as many as you can. Because what you're doing here in step 2 and in step 3 is you are getting clear on the gap between where you currently are, who you currently are, and who you want to be. If you want to get somewhere new and you're using a GPS, there's 2 things that the GPS needs to know. It needs to know your starting location and your goal destination. If you don't have those 2 points of information, you will not have the road that you need to take in order to get to where you want to be. Like you need those 2 things, no matter what your goal is. So first, we're getting clear on what is the destination. Who is the person that you want to become? It starts with the identity, and then everything is going to trickle down from there. So step 2 is figuring out the destination. Step 3 is asking yourself the question, the person that I'm currently being, what emotions do I feel around food and eating? So your current identity, how do you feel with your relationship with food? So you want to write down what are the emotions that you feel. It might be things like anxious, preoccupied, distracted, out of control, guilty, ashamed, self-critical, judgmental, hyper-aware, restricted, scared, disconnected, judgmental, reactive. Like, what are the emotions that you currently feel around eating? And once you do that, you're going to realize that the person you're currently being and the emotions that you have attached to your relationship with food, those cannot come with you. Because the version of you who has a healthy relationship with food does not feel that way. And now, hopefully, it gives you a sense of clarity as to why you've repeated the same patterns or why you're still struggling, because your identity is still caught and wrapped up into an old, unhealthy relationship with food. And don't worry, step 4 is going to address how you close that gap. But first, you have to really flush out where you want to go, or more so, who you want to become, and where you are starting. And then step 4 is where you are going to finally get clear on how you close that gap. And you're going to ask yourself, what would need to change in terms of beliefs, thought patterns, the way you speak to yourself, the way you think about food, your behaviors around food, skills that you need to develop. What would need to change for me to become the person who has a healthy relationship with food? And allow yourself to sit with that. Allow yourself to really write down that version of me 12 months from now, who is telling people about the transformation that she's had this year and how much she's changed, and who's now helping others who are struggling with her relationship with food. What does she think? How does she think? How does she feel? What does she do around food? And flush it out. Don't filter yourself. Just write it all down. And the point is not to get overwhelmed and to think about, oh my God, now I have to do all these things all at once and then just feel so overwhelmed that you don't take action on anything. But now you'll get cleared and you'll feel empowered around what actually needs to change. Like, what's going to make a difference? What's going to move me forward? And the things that you write down might be very different from what you're used to focusing on. I know for me, whenever there's an area of my life that I want to heal or I want to change, when I take the time to ask myself, okay, the version of me who has a healthy relationship with X, what does she do differently? What skills does she have? How does she think differently? It like allows me to access a whole new level of consciousness because I'm just so used to my small way of thinking. And clearly, my small way of thinking is not serving me. So how can I access a different way of thinking? I think there's something that we all do, and it's natural and normal that we do this. We look at people who have what we want, and we can only see the outside, right? What they have, what they do. We can't go into their minds. So we look at people, we compare, and then we ask ourselves, well, what are they doing? And how can I do the same thing? You might look at people who have a healthy relationship with food, who have the body that you want, and you might see, oh, well, they're leaving food on their plate, or they're only having one cookie, or they're eating slowly. So you're like, I should do the same things that she does. But the problem is that someone's behaviors are just a trickle down, a result, a byproduct of the way that they think and the way that they feel. It is much easier for me to leave food on the plate if I have a sense of calm, a sense of self-trust, no urgency, no scarcity around food. It's much easier for me to leave food on the plate if I know that if I'm hungry in an hour, I can just go back for more. If I know that if I want to have this piece of cake a week from now, I can. But you can't see that. You can't see the way that I think. You can't see the way that I feel around food. All you see is me leaving food on the plate. And then you might get frustrated because you're like, I'm really trying to stop eating past fullness. I'm really trying to stop overeating. I'm trying to leave food on the plate. It is so hard. And then you're using willpower in order to try to change that, in order to try to become someone different. But the way that you think, the way that you feel, and your identity is still rooted in who you've been. And so doing this is going to help you get clear on, in order to become this new version of me, what do I need to think? How do I need to talk to myself? How do I need to relate to food? What do I need to do differently? And then your path is going to be clearer for you to, in 2026, do what you need to do in order to bring this roadmap into a concrete reality. So maybe it means reading certain books or investing in certain programs or coaches or support. Maybe it's listening to certain podcasts. I know that for me, whenever I'm like, okay, I'm committed to changing this or healing this about myself, I then ask myself, how can I fast track it? How can I condense the time that it takes me to make this a reality? Because time is such a precious commodity. So maybe I'll start with reading a book or listening to an audiobook or following certain people that I know are going to help me, doing some journaling, getting the support that I need. Because yes, there is the piece of getting clear on what needs to change. But then if you're finding it difficult to do it on your own, then enlist support to make it easier and faster for yourself. So these are the 4 steps that I'm telling you are going to make the biggest difference in 2026. It's not about trying harder. It's not about having more willpower. It's not about just doubling down on discipline. It is, number one, doing a year review and clearing your year and letting all of the failures and mistakes, letting them behind, and then just bringing the lessons, bringing the growth, bringing whatever you need to extract from those quote unquote failures. And those lessons are what are going to guide you to do things differently in 2026. Then number two is getting clear on the person, the version of me who has a healthy relationship with food. How does she feel? What emotions does she feel around food? Then number three is the current version of me, my current identity. How do I currently feel? What emotions do I feel around food? And then step four is, all right, now that I know the gap between who I am and where I want to be, how do I close that gap? What do I need to think differently? How do I need to speak to myself differently? What are some of the things that I need to do differently? How can I enlist support in order to facilitate this change and transformation if you're having a hard time on your own? That is how you close that gap. It's as simple as that. So I really hope, I know that I give you a lot of homework on this podcast, but it's because I don't just want to give you a bunch of information that's going to go in through one ear and out the other. I want to take this and make it tangible for you. So I really hope you take the time to do this, or at least at a bare minimum that you think through it, that you force your brain to do a little bit of mental work, because I promise this is what's going to help you create a different experience around food for good starting in 2026. So I love you so much. For those of you who celebrate Christmas, who are listening to this on the 24th, Merry Christmas. I hope you're getting to spend some beautiful time with your family. If you're having any kind of anxieties, fears around food, make sure you listen to last week's episode where I walk you through 3 shockingly simple ways to enjoy the holidays without guilt or losing control. And I love you. And I believe in your ability to create a whole new relationship with food and your body and yourself in 2026. It's really just about making the decision that you are going to do things differently and you are going to do whatever it takes to heal your relationship with food because it matters that much. I truly believe with every bone in my body that all it takes is 1 year of obsessing over whatever it is that you want to change. 1 year of being obsessed with putting this food struggle behind for good in order to create decades of freedom and peace. One of my best friends was like teetering back and forth between, am I going to stay at my current job where I don't feel really happy, I'm not valued, I'm underpaid, or am I going to get serious about trying to find a new job? And she had been going back and forth, sitting on the fence for almost a year until eventually in the fall, I was like, girl, get clear on, do you actually want to change jobs? Do you want to get paid more? Do you want to be valued more? And she said, yes. And I said, then get obsessed with finding a new job. This isn't about like passively kind of looking for something. Get obsessed. Spend the time, dedicate yourself, commit to it, get obsessed with it, because that's the only way that you will create a different experience. And that really got through to her. So she got obsessed and she made the energetic decision that no matter what, by January 1st, 2026, she would be at a different job. And guess who got an offer at a new company where she would be paid better and valued and really taken care of starting first week of January. So I'm telling you, this is not just like random advice. Just get obsessed. Get obsessed with healing, with putting this behind you for good for a year, and then see what happens on the other side. All right. I love you, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.